It's about 7 p.m. now. Apologies, there's still an echo. There's going to be for a little while, but I'm reading The Girls Are Never Gone, which is a sapphic YA kind of mystery horror that my friend Taylor on Discord recommended because I was like, I need a ghost story. It's Summerween. I want a ghost story, but I've read every Darcy Coates book already. So someone recommended me a book and Taylor said, read this one. I am really enjoying it. I think the audiobook is super well produced. I love the whole sapphic element with the little crush that the girls have on each other, which I just think is absolutely adorable. And the mystery itself is really interesting. I will say that what this book does so well is like strong atmosphere. It has such a great setting and everything is like so vividly described that I can picture it all playing out in my head like a movie. There's some mixed media in that Dare, our main female character, does have a podcast. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. I can't hear the name Dare and not think of Rachel Elizabeth Dare because of course I was a Percy Jackson kid and I don't know why that name sticks in my head but it does. But anyway, it's really enjoyable. I'm really loving the atmosphere. It has, I wouldn't say it's a gothic by any stretch of the imagination, but it has the same feelings, kind of like a gothic if you toned it down and made it more for a YA audience. I really love how the characters themselves express their queerness and how the author is talking about that throughout the story. I really love the house itself and the lore behind the house and like how it's unraveling. I'll say that it is a slower paced story for sure. If I sit down and think about it, is anything really happening? No. But am I having a good time? Yes. So I'm going to not eat dinner. I'm not really hungry. I'm more like nibbling on things here and there. I'm going to continue coloring and I'll see you with my update because tomorrow is 4th of July. I have the day off, which means we can do a little reading together as I kick off Summerween just a touch early. It always makes me laugh how comfortable I am with you because yes, this is in fact what my bangs look like when I wake up in the morning. But hello besties, it is 8 a.m. I just had breakfast and I'm watching Gavin's new moving vlog, which is so fun and exciting. I'm gonna have a chill day at home as I mentioned. So I'm gonna continue reading this book, which yes, I've already forgotten the name of. I think I'll be able to finish that later on today. And in a little bit, I'll show you what I got from the library because that's what I was doing yesterday when I showed you like a little clip of me in an Uber going to the library because I still don't have a car. I will be getting one hopefully within the next week or so. And what I was doing was getting a new library card, which I absolutely love that library. It is so stinking cute. I'm gonna hang out there all the time, but I'll show you a little library haul. But for now, let me continue unwinding and relaxing in this beautiful morning. It is a gorgeous, sunny, bright blue day, and I will see you with my library haul. All right, besties, prepare for the shittiest haul you've ever seen because I'm actually not going to tell you what these books are about because I don't fucking know. But this is what I picked up from the library since this weekend is Summerween. So I have The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. Don't know what this is about, but I know a lot of people love it. And this has been on my TBR for a very long time. Then I also got The Last Murder at the End of the World, which actually fulfills all of the Summerween prompts. So as long as I read this book, I would have done a great job with Summerween. This is I think an apocalypse story where like people live in like this very secluded area, maybe even in a bubble, I don't know, and someone dies and they try to figure out who killed them. This one I've checked out from the library before, but in New York, I'm finally going to read Raiders of the Lost Heart. I think this perfectly fulfills the cover with like summer vibes. I don't know if this is set in summer, but I know that it is set in Mexico. So I'm going to count this as this prompt. And this is a story, I think it's kind of like, I want to say Indiana Jones, but that's not the movie I'm thinking about. They're investigating and like they're archaeologists doing research on this tomb, but they're also academic rivals. And And they did have the new Christina Forrest, which is the partner plot. This is a married in Vegas story, and that is all I know. But again, we have a cover that very much has all the summer vibe. So that's everything I picked up from the library that I'll be reading throughout July. Obviously, this is my bookshelf, and these are the only books that I brought with me when I moved. So this is what I have until then, plus these library books. I'm gonna put these books away, and then I have to chop up some bananas and freeze them for my smoothie packs. So I'm going to do that, and I figure we could use that time to kind of catch up on how I'm feeling moving into this apartment. So this is my kitchen. I have a shit ton of fucking bananas to chop up and freeze, which is always my intention for these bananas. I'm just letting them get ripe. And I think by this point in the video, you have figured out this is a little bit more lifestyle than it is reading. Obviously, I will still be reading and giving you reading updates, but I also want to give you some life updates as I prepare these bananas. I lived in New York City, and you all know that. New York City is my hometown. This is where I was born and raised. I spent the majority of my life in New York City. So 2020, August, I moved back to New York City to live with my parents, my mom, until I felt like I was more settled on my feet and I knew what I wanted to do with my future. And I was really alternating between a few different plans. At some point, I was like, I want a house. And at another point, I was like, I want to move abroad. And I would always alternate between the two. But I've never felt any pressure to like make a decision. The entire time I was saving money, I just didn't know what I was saving that money for. Florida was always in the plan. I just didn't know how long Florida would be. Whether it would be an intermediary step, just like a step on the path to me moving abroad, or whether or not I would choose to purchase a home in Florida and settle down there. I just dropped my banana on the counter. And in that time, I've done a lot of work on myself and a lot of thinking about what it is that I want to do. And ultimately, I decided that I do want to move abroad. So if I decided to move abroad, you might be like, Shar, why the fuck are you in Florida if you decided to move abroad? Well, here's why Florida would have always been an intermediary step for me to move abroad internationally. As a US citizen, when you move abroad internationally, you are still responsible for paying US taxes unless you renounce your citizenship. And I don't have any intention of renouncing my US citizenship. I want to move abroad, and I want to move abroad for several decades, but I do have intentions of potentially coming back to the US in my 40s or 50s. So a very long-term move for me. I don't want to renounce my citizenship. So in doing my research, I've realized and accepted that the most effective way to do an international move is to move to a state that does not have income tax. And the reason that is because you are still obligated to pay taxes. It is in your best interest to move to a state that doesn't have income tax so that your tax responsibility is lower. So you need to keep your residency status here in Florida or in a state that has no income tax. Florida is just one of the states that don't have income tax. Washington is another that was potentially on the list for me. In addition, there is Vermont, Nevada, and Texas that do not have a income tax. So those were all potential options. I ultimately chose Florida just because I felt like that's somewhere I knew I wanted to be, at least for a little while. So I moved down to Florida in June. That is how I ended up here in Florida. And when I tell you I picked up my entire life and moved across the country, I tell you I picked up my entire life and moved across the country, because not only did I move to Florida, I also got a new job, which I am starting in a couple of weeks. And I am once again going to be driving. I do have a license. I can drive. I just don't have a need to drive in New York, so it's been a while. But next Friday, my family is going to come down to visit me. In the first 2 weeks that I was here with my nieces and my nephew and my sister and her partner, and they went home. And then next week, my older sister and my nieces and her partner and my mom are going to come down and visit me and bring me my computer and the remainder of my stuff. So because I was doing a cross-country move, this is me literally just rambling to you about the past couple of weeks and where the heck I've been and what I've been doing. I could only bring with me what I could pack in 2 suitcases, a carry-on and a checked bag. So obviously my wardrobe is very limited. My books did not come with me. I brought a very small number of books with me so that I would have enough to read in the first month or so while I was here. And that's pretty much all I brought with me. I didn't bring anything else. So I'm very excited for my family to come visit me. I'm very excited for my computer to come because I really miss playing The Sims. I love playing The Sims so much, and I'm ready to just jump back in with my save file. So that is what I have been up to. Now, how am I feeling? Obviously, I lived pretty much alone for several years. I was out of the house from the ages of 17 to about 24 or 25 before I moved back in with my mom. To be honest with you, the first few weeks, I would say, no, few weeks. What am I talking about? I've been in this apartment for like 2 weeks and I've been in Florida for about 3 weeks. So the first week I had a lot of anxiety because I had moved down to Florida and I didn't have a car. I didn't have a place to live. So the priority was obviously finding a place to live and deciding where in Florida I wanted to live. I knew Florida, I just didn't know what city. So I was doing a lot of apartment searching. Obviously, I found this place, which I moved into and really loved. But that first week was definitely a lot of anxiety until I officially got the keys and moved in. And then the next week, again, I had 2 suitcases with me, so I had nothing for the apartment. I had to go and furnish this apartment, right? So I already had money for that. I knew it was going to cost me money. So I spent a lot of fucking money buying things like a couch, a bed, a mattress, things like this knife and cutting board, Tupperware, utensils, pots, pans, all the kind of stuff that I need for my apartment. And that is what I've been doing. I have enough containers for these bananas. A great question for myself. And I will be honest and say that the first couple of days is an adjustment. When you go from living with someone for many years to living alone, there's going to be an adjustment period. And because June was such a high anxiety month for me because I was changing my entire life, I didn't make time for any of the hobbies that I normally engage in. I just could not mentally focus on those things. I felt like I was in a very transitionary phase in my life, and there are just a lot of things that were up in the air. So mentally, I just could not focus. But in the week that I have been in this home, I'm happy to tell you that I am absolutely loving it. I'm feeling a lot more settled in. I've made time for my hobbies again. So I'm back to reading and coloring. I want to get back into diamond painting and crocheting. My mom sent me my Nintendo Switch, so I can get back into my cozy games until I wait for my mom and my sister and my family to bring me my gaming computer. So all very exciting things that are happening. And at this point, I am feeling very settled. But one of the positives about getting a new job is that obviously I'm going to have coworkers. And because I'm going to have new coworkers, there's also going to be employee events and just generally things that are going to occupy the majority of my week to kind of stave off some of that loneliness. Because one of the factors that I'm navigating is not only that I moved across the country alone, it's that I moved across the country alone to a state where I don't have many connections here. I wouldn't say I have 0 connections because that's not true. I have family, friends here, but I don't have close connections in Florida. So one of the things that I'm focusing on is not only making time for my hobbies, but also making time for building community and friendships. So something that I did yesterday was go to the library, and the library was so much fun. First of all, the librarian on duty was a queer person, and their pin had their pronouns on them. And I absolutely loved that. As a queer person myself, it made me feel very comfortable to kind of have that safe space in the library. Plus, I struck up a conversation with this older woman who was talking about the injury she has to her arm and the kind of books that she likes to read. And it was just so friendly and welcoming. Truly a beautiful library. And they do really great events like book clubs, Dungeons and Dragons, hiking, paint nights, craft nights, etc. Why did I think an entire bunch of bananas could fit in these containers? I don't know. But that's where I'm at. That is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling a lot more settled in. Something that I am definitely missing is a car. I have to spend money on Ubers when I leave my house, if I want to leave my house, just because nothing is within walking distance. I need the grocery store, but that's about it. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to feel trapped anywhere. If I feel like I can't go somewhere, it gives me anxiety. So I'm very excited to have a car. Obviously, I'm also going to need one because I have to commute to work. But I'm holding off on that until next week, just for like my own reasons. I think that next week the timing is going to work better for me to purchase a car. Something that I also was speaking to my mother about this morning, because I call my family every day, is that in New York, obviously New York City is one of the most walkable cities in the world. So I would go on walks very, very often. It was extremely easy for me to hit my 10,000 steps a day, no problem. And I also had my walking pad. But obviously that's not the case in Florida. So I definitely am missing like my daily walks. And I have to look into some nearby parks that could potentially do that and do some hikes. Although your girl does not want to see a fucking snake. Love the animals, love our ecosystem. They do such a great job. Bugs too. But me, I don't want to see them. They can do their thing. I can respect them, but don't come near me. But I definitely want to take some hikes, explore some parks, go to some beaches. So you can look forward to that on this channel. So I'm not going to be here forever, but I definitely will be here for quite a while. This container is the perfect size. So that's pretty much everything that I have to catch you up on, which is great because those are all the bananas that I had to cut. So that is perfect. So I am going to get back to watching Gavin's video. To be honest, it's a very slow and lazy day for me. And then I will get back to reading and I'll catch you up then. I'm about to start coloring and listening to the audiobook for The Girls Are Never Gone. And I remember what I wanted to tell you yesterday. I suspect Quinn like nobody's fucking business. I think that something is going on. Quinn is the girl that Dare has a crush on, and I don't know. Quinn's mom said something really weird. She's like, listen, don't trust pretty things. They're often hiding something dark and dangerous. And Dare is just obsessing over how pretty Quinn is. I 100% feel like I'm way off base, but want to officially document that I'm very suspicious of Quinn. I've finished The Girls Are Never Gone, and I loved it. I'm giving it 4 stars. All of my opinions are exactly the same, but I really loved the ending and where it went. And it was also just sad, but then it ended the book with like this podcast episode attachment, which is Dare's podcast. And I can't spoil what happens for you, but what happens, I was like, that makes so much fucking sense. Because the whole time I was like, bitch, you spent 10 minutes arguing. That girl's dead. And you know what? She might be dead. But to be honest with you, besties, I was set up to love this book. Shout out to Taylor, who I don't think is watching this video, but like Taylor, you could not have picked a more Char book. Sapphic horror, haunted house, ghost, not just suspicions of ghosts, ghost. It was such a me book, and I think I mentioned this in a previous clip, but in case I didn't, Dare is also a type 1 diabetic, and that's something that we explore with her throughout the story and how she has to manage that in her day-to-day life. And I just loved this book so much. It wasn't a perfect 5-star read, but to be completely fair, it's hard for any YA book to be a perfect 5-star read for me, but I'll say for a YA book, that's not what I mean. In general, I just love this book a lot, and I'm going to check now to see if there's a sequel, because if there is, I'm going to read it. But the next book I'm going to read, I think I'm going to start The Last Murder at the End of the World, or I'm going to finally finish The Fake Me, which is the book on my nightstand behind me. So I'll update you with whichever one I decide to do. Good morning, friends. It is the next day. It is Friday, July 5th, which means it's officially the first day of Summerween. I wanted to update you that I did read Winter People last night. I didn't finish it. I got like 60 pages in, and I'm really enjoying this. I chose this book because I've read the premise and I was like, that actually sounds really interesting. So in 1908, this woman disappears. She goes missing, and then we are several decades in the future, in our present day at this point, and we are following a young girl named, what's her name? Ruthie. Ruthie lives in Sarah's farmhouse, and Sarah is the woman who disappeared in 1908. Her mother is kind of a conspiracy theorist. She doesn't want anyone to be able to track them, so they're forced to live off the grid, and they're pretty poor. So they're living on this farm. It's Ruthie, her mother Alice, and her little sister. And Alice goes missing, and Ruthie finds these diaries from Sarah, which are very disturbing, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her mother. Now, the first 50 or so pages of this, part 1, is entirely in the point of view of Sarah, Martin, and their daughter Gerda. That is not right, Gertie. So we're following those point of view, and what I will tell you is that I am very sensitive to the content warning of harm to children or death of children, and this book definitely opens up that way. So like, being mindful of that if that is also a trigger for you. But something about the kind of cadence and pace and just general atmosphere of the book is really working for me. I like the pacing that the author has established with this and how distinct the two different timelines feel. I find myself feeling very disturbed, although I can't tell you why I'm feeling disturbed. I just am. But I'm also feeling uncomfortable because Sarah in 1908 had this aunt who is half indigenous. She is a Native woman. And the way that she's described, this isn't my identity, so I can't speak to this, but just something about how she's described is making me uncomfortable. And I think the reason why it could be making me uncomfortable is because it seems like she is the origin of all of the kind of spooky, scary things that are going on here. And I don't like seeing that in horror books. So I'm going to see how that plays out, because admittedly, I am only 60 pages in. I could be completely wrong about the role that this aunt plays in the story that we're being told, but I'm hoping that it's not going to go down that path. So I'm going to read some more of The Winter People, and I'll see you when I have an update. Let me stop. Welcome back to my kitchen in this exact same vlog. This angle is weird, so let me change you. It is lunchtime. I am on page 100 of The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. I don't really have any updates for you except that we got introduced to another character named Catherine, and Catherine is triggering the fuck out of me. It is not her fault, but she had a son named Austin, and Austin is my nephew's name. And you can hear that I've used the past term she had a son, and as you all know, harm to children is a huge fucking trigger for me. So that's a fun time. It is not a fun time at all, but because I have this new kitchen, and something that I was so excited for is to finally like do more lifestyle-y bits, just kind of showing you like my day-to-day life and what I do, because I never really did that in New York City unless I was out and about. But I am making the spicy potato tacos. I saw Julian do this on his channel where he was like duping the Taco Bell spicy potatoes. FYI, I hate Taco Bell, for real. I think that their food tastes like salt. If you love Taco Bell and you're watching this video, sorry besties, it just tastes like sodium to me. But I do love potatoes. And you know when people are like, if you could have one meal for the rest of your life, or like if you only had to have one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? Potatoes, because there are about 8 million different things that you can make with potatoes, and they're just so versatile. See that I'm being a lazy ass bitch here, because did Julian say you should cut your potatoes evenly so they cook evenly? Of course he did. Am I going to do that? No. Did he also peel his potatoes? Yeah. Am I going to do that? No. If you're wondering what I'm throwing into this bowl, it's the potatoes into a spiced flour mixture, which is the part that makes this spicy potato tacos. I'm going to continue reading The Winter People. I really don't think I'm going to finish it today, but something I have been focusing on this channel, and just like in my life in general, is not rushing my reading. I don't feel like I ever really rush my reading because I've always read at the volume that I read, except for the immediate years following college. But I don't want to push myself to finish a book just for the sake of finishing a book, so I'm not going to do that. So now I'm going to throw you into the time lapse. Whenever I finish Winter People, we'll move on to the next book. The options are Whiskey Business, The Last Murder at the End of the World, or horror movie, which is on everyone. So I will let you know what I picked once I finish Winter People. I will give you the 50% update when I'm at that point. But for now, let's time lapse me making these potatoes. Okay, I am now listening to Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. The audiobook is done very, very well, but do I like this story? No, this is not a me book by any stretch of the imagination. I am generally indifferent about it. It's not even that, because what this story is really about is bullying, and I'm pretty sure the teens in this movie are part of some kind of cult and they're all fucked in the head. But Valentina's the most fucked in the head, and that includes Valentina, the character in the movie, and Valentina, the director from the original movie, because I'm like, y'all are dumb. Because this poor teen that they are bullying, disgusting. Am I rooting for them? No. I hope Thin Kid, that's his name, he never gets a name in the story, gets his revenge. I hope that he loses his mind. I hope that... I'm gonna stop there because this is fictional, okay? I'm talking about fictional, but it's disgusting the way that they treat this poor boy. Like, truly disgusting. And I am wishing only bad things on them. That is how I'm feeling. I'm about 40% of the way through. To be honest with you, I would DNF it, but the audiobook is very good. I just don't like the story. I don't understand. And really, I'm just trying to get to the point, which if you don't know what this story is about, there was a film made in the early 90s, but it was never released because I think everyone on the cast and crew, with the exception of the Thin Kid, the man who played the Thin Kid, died, or like, he's the only survivor left. And then we are in present day where Hollywood is now rebooting the movie. But the thing is, this movie was actually never released. There were only 3 scenes that were ever released, but no one ever saw the entire movie. Yet it has this massive following and is kind of like a Hollywood legend, and people want to reboot it, and they are now finally rebooting it. But yeah, I am suspicious of everyone, and I don't think I like any of these characters, but I want to know what happened in that original movie that was made in the 90s. Why is Thin Kid the only survivor, like IRL, not in the movie? He literally is the only person who worked on that movie who lived, and I want to know what the hell happened. So I'm going to continue to read this. I will let you know what I think, but truthfully, I'm on the Patreon Summerween sprints with Gabby, and I think that after this sprint, I'm going to go back to reading Winter People. I just stepped away from Winter People because Winter People is scary in like a sad, melancholy way. It very much reminds me of migrations. I wouldn't say are similar themes, but just like in the general conversation about like grief and sadness, and the tone itself is giving me very similar vibes. So I'll see you with my updates for Winter People, and then I'll see you with my updates for Horror Movie. Could I splice it so this vlog makes sense and keep them in the same section? Sure. But that's not the authentic reading experience, and you and I can have the authentic reading experience. So I finished Horror Movie. It was a book that I read, and that's about how I feel. To be honest with you, the audiobook for this is very good, but was doing a lot of fucking heavy lifting, because is this story interesting? No, not really. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm going to tell you, I hate the last chapter of this book. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? There's a thing that the narrator was doing, because obviously it was in the story, of like, you do this, and you would think this, and you would do this. I'm like, no, I wouldn't. I literally would not. If that was actually happening, I'd be like, the fuck, and leave. I'm not contemplating reality. I'm not philosophizing. That's not a word. Life. The way you seem to think this would make me do. I don't know. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm giving it 3 stars because objectively, yes, technically, the writing is very good and the story was interesting enough to continue. But I finished it because the audiobook was really good, not because the story was really good. Which sounds harsh, but it's the truth, Bethies, and I'm here to give you my opinion. This could very easily end up on my worst books of the year list, and that sucks. It won't, because it wasn't, like, terrible. I just didn't like it. It's Sunday. It's very dark. Listen, it's hot, so I'm keeping my apartment very dark. But I did finish The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, and I am giving this 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, even if I found certain elements of this predictable. And at some point, the suspension of disbelief was broken for me. Not in any of the like paranormal elements, but more so in some of the reactions. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, that's what would happen. And then Catherine has a point of view as one of the final chapters in this story, and it made me not like her. It made me not like her. I understand why she's doing what she's doing, but it also seems like she has no concept of consequences of her actions when it comes to this. So we'll see what happens to Catherine, except that we never will because this is a standalone. So I'm going to assume Catherine does something with her life that I do not approve of. I did really enjoy this. It made me sad. I think that there is a deeper conversation here about holding on to people because this book is about resurrecting the dead. I like that. I found elements of this predictable, and I still feel really uncomfortable with where this went for who the villain of the story is. I don't think there's a villain. There's just people projecting their pain and acting out their pain. But if there was one bad guy here, I was uncomfortable. But like I said, that's not my lane. I do not have the background to comment on this. I just want to point out that it did make me uncomfortable, but this was a 4-star read. I think it will stay with me, but ultimately not a new favorite. With that said, besties, we have come to the end of this vlog. I know it was much more casual. Thank you for sticking with me because I also know the audio sucked because there's an echo, so you can hear that throughout the entire thing. Like I mentioned before, my apartment is empty, so please bear with me. It's going to have an echo, but in the next vlog, part 2 of Summerween, I will be using my microphone, so the audio quality will be better. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being with me in this new chapter of my life, and I will see you in my next video on Sunday. Bye!